You might wanna buckle up, baby.
Punch, and I'm Jacob, and welcome to Lightspeed. The 8th episode of The Acolyte is now streaming on Disney+, so let's talk about it. And I've said it throughout the entire season, but considering that this is the season finale, there's honestly no way that I can talk about this episode, especially without spoilers. So if you haven't seen this episode, I highly recommend watching it for yourself and then coming back to this video. And before I say anything about this episode itself, I logged on to Disney Plus to watch this finale, only to see that the episode had no thumbnail, no description, and no episode title. So I knew that something was about to go down. The episode starts off extremely eerie, with Osha using the same magic that the witches used on Chimere. He told her 2 episodes ago that you and whatever you take with you are the only things inside of his helmet. Though judging by his reaction to said magic, he probably didn't expect that. Osha then says that she had a vision of killing Soul without a weapon. Although I expected Soul to most likely die in this episode, I found it interesting that after having this vision, Osha goes to Bryndock in the hopes to actually save him instead. But more about that later. I like how these 2 characters have to work together, yet Osha has her own feelings and motivations, whereas Chimere just kind of wants an acolyte. Meanwhile, Soul is attempting to justify his actions 16 years ago to May, and that's actually pretty terrible. It just goes to show that, once again, although the Jedi Order does serve the light, those within the Order are not inherently perfect. I know that Soul recognizes what he did was wrong, but at the same time, just fully own up to your mistakes, man. Which makes it all the better when May tells him that she'll see him in hell before escaping. Which, by the way, the concept of hell in Star Wars has existed for numerous years now, dating back to the early comics, and even Han Solo telling a rebel soldier that he'll see him in hell in The Empire Strikes Back. So I don't know why people are complaining once again. I'm a massive sucker for any space battle or chase sequence in Star Wars, so this episode starting off with exactly that was really fun for me. Also, shout out to Basil for deactivating Soul's blasters before he's able to open fire on May. Granted, I don't think that Soul was trying to necessarily kill May, but rather slow her down or destroy part of her ship and preventing her from escaping. Speaking of the Jedi being problematic, I loved the scene on Coruscant with the Senator speaking with Vernestra, telling her that he believes that the Jedi are a massive system of unchecked power, posing as a religion trying to control the uncontrollable. And when Vernestra claims that they don't control the Force, he immediately shoots back that he isn't talking about that, but rather emotion. That they are trying so hard to uphold an image to both the Senate and the entire galaxy that it's only a matter of time before one of them snaps. Which is pretty foreboding for not just the end of this episode, but also knowing that this sequel directly leads into the prequel trilogy. It's just like Mother Anastasia said in the previous episode, their noble intentions will ultimately destroy them all one day. I'm not gonna lie, this is probably one of my favorite scenes in the entire series. Osha rejects Chimere once again as a teacher before they leave the unknown planet, but it's here that we see a mysterious figure watching them. I don't think that he's fully aware of who they are, but is very much just hiding on his own terms. Or maybe not, I could be wrong, but I feel like there's no denying this. That is without a doubt Darth Plagueis. It's really great finally seeing this character in live action, even if he is mostly covered in the shadow. He's just as creepy as he was first described in Revenge of the Sith, and I'm glad that he's now much more than just a name in Star Wars canon. Again, there's always some truth in legends, and it's always great to see characters like this make live action debuts, or at least return into the main canon. I love how the final act of this episode, and the series in general, takes place in the same spot where the inciting incident happened. All of these characters converging in this one location is just kind of perfect for every one of their own individual character arcs. It's just like George Lucas would say, it's like poetry, it rhymes. The lightsaber duel between Soul and Chimere is absolutely incredible. I love that this series has brought back the faster, more intense choreography from the prequel trilogy. I've seen some people complaining about the look of the lightsabers during this sequence, but I'm going to be perfectly honest, that never once bothered me, nor did the lack of rotoscoping ever really cross my mind. To me, it looked great, and seeing a rematch between these 2 characters was a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. Osha Osha and Mei's reunion was great, and their fight was a perfect parallel to the other duel between Chimera and Soul. I also love how these characters have kind of reversed roles, as Mei is more calm and is sort of leaning more towards the light, while Osha is fueled by anger and definitely leaning more into the dark side. The costume swap also makes this all the more thematically interesting, and them using the same moves against one another gave me flashbacks to when J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson did the exact same thing for Rey and Kylo Ren in The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. Osha and Mei being revealed as essentially the same person was definitely a surprise. I don't know if I can fully confirm that they're a dyad in the Force, but it seems incredibly likely. Or likely that they are very similar to the concept of one. I also loved how the concept of killing a Jedi without a weapon, first mentioned in episode 1, comes back to play here, with Osha using the Force to choke and eventually kill Soul. By the way, there's no way to know if this is the first instance of a Force choke or not, but considering the Sith have been around for years by this point, I highly doubt it. Also, although we saw it first in Jedi Survivor, it was really cool seeing a Kyber crystal bleed to red in a live-action Star Wars project. I feel like the concept of the dark side users bleeding Kyber crystals is somewhat common knowledge by this point, but it's still really awesome to finally see that happen in real time. And the fact that this is Soul's lightsaber that eventually becomes Osha's is all the more thematically relevant and poetic. Whether she meant to or not, bleeding the crystal of a Jedi that you have killed is a massive rite of passage for a Sith, and Osha does exactly that. Vernestra arriving with the other Jedi and immediately sensing the stranger was also incredibly intriguing, even going as far to state out loud that he's alive. This pretty much confirms that Chimera was telling the truth, that he once was a Jedi, and the theory of Vernestra being his former master. Mei finally gives Osha the chance to choose her own destiny, allowing Chimera to wipe the last 16 years of their memories, which is honestly a pretty emotional end to the series. That is until we cut back to Coruscant to see Vernestra lying to the Senate, claiming that Soul snapped, killing Masters Indara, Torben, and Kilnaka before killing himself, and that the Jedi themselves do not condone the actions of this fallen Jedi Master. She destroys her friend's legacy and uses him as a cover-up to another cover-up for the Jedi's own mistakes almost 2 decades prior. Granted, Soul's legacy wasn't great, but you get the idea. Again, the Jedi Order may serve the light, but those within it are all inherently flawed. Hopefully we get to see a second season and we can fully see that conversation between Yoda and Vernestra. I'd love to see what my favorite green unnamed species number 1 has to say about this incident. Which, by the way, Leslie Headland said that Yoda was not in this series, and I'm kind of glad that she did tell the truth from a certain point of view. It reminds me of when J.J. Abrams deliberately hid Luke Skywalker from the marketing of The Force Awakens. Luke is only in that movie for a short period of time, so I'm glad they did virtually the same technique with Yoda in this show, since we only really get one shot of his ears. But Osha and Chimera staring off at the waves, united in their allegiance through the dark side, was in my opinion the perfect way that this series could have ended. This finale was great. Again, it went above and beyond my expectations. I feel like the series does very much stand on its own, but I do really hope that it gets renewed for a second season. Was The Acolyte perfect in every single way? No, but no show or movie truly is. But it was some of the most intriguing and thematically interesting Star Wars that I've seen in quite some time, probably since Andor. But what did you think of The Acolyte season finale and the series overall? Did you love it? Were you not a fan? Are you kind of in the middle? Let me know down in the comments below. Also, if you want to talk Star Wars even more, I have a link to my Discord server down in the description below as well. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And until the next video, for light and life.